So my name is Frank Gielen. I'm Education Director at InnoEnergy. One of my favorite hobby horses is how AI is impacting education, energy, and a lot of other things. So we thought, let's do a session on this. And we are very happy that our sponsor, Engie, said, yes, this is a real good idea. We'll make it happen. And to make it happen, we also decided to do it a little bit different in this special format where all the fish can speak, because you're the fish and you're the speakers. So Inge will explain how this will work. But let me first of all say a couple of words. Well, what is the purpose of this session? The first, we want to answer two questions. And the two questions are, what is the impact of the growth of AI on the sustainable energy transition or on climate change? What does it mean? What can we do for that? And the second one, equally important, where will AI really make a difference in the energy transition and make it happen faster or sooner, or where does it move the needle? Because we can all do nice things like efficiency increasing, but we really want to move big time. So that's the two topics of today. And maybe if you can show me the slide. This one, yes. So you know there is a new energy label for energy, and I thank Johan Driessen, professor at KU Leuven, for sending this to me. So this is the new energy label for AI. I thought it was a nice one. And I immediately want to add a bit of context to this, because when I was working in the internet industry in the mid-90s, at some point there was a statement made. You have to know that at that point, the data traffic on the internet, I'm speaking 95, was doubling every 6 months. And some of the people that were getting really worried said, well, if it goes on like this, within 2 decades, 50% of the electricity will be used by internet. Well, look at it today. It's not 50%, it's 4%. Because they forgot that technology changes, we optimize everything, and that's part of the discussion also today. So that being said, as a bit of the context, I would like to give the word to Inge to explain the format of the Fishbowl session.
Yes, thank you, Frank. So, do you feel the energy? Yes. A little bit of energy? So, but I probably forgot an important word. So let me try again. Are you ready? Do you feel the sustainable energy? Yes! Now you can start. Okay, now I feel more comfortable. So, Frank and I are both teachers, which means you are suddenly in an educational session. You will learn. What? Learn? Yes, you will learn. And so we are trying to get more interactivity into session. And you will see that once the fishbowl starts, speakers who are experts in the topic will jump up and go to the mic. There will be speakers here, and there will be speakers there. And there will be a discussion going on, because everybody has an opinion, especially these days. And then as an audience, Frank will engage you in voting and even voicing your opinion. So you should have a folder. The folder is absolutely fabulous. Go and explore. You also have 2 Post-it notes. The blue one is, yes, I agree with the statement. The pink one is, no, not at all. I'm disagreeing completely. So let me just check. The blue one, sir? What is it for?
I agree.
Perfect. So you're all focused. Yes. So now I like to give the floor to Frank, and I will ask the speakers to come up to the mics. Thank you.
So, just a second, yeah. So, So the nice thing about the Fishbowl format is that we have a number of named speakers that have an expertise in different areas, and they will be the catalyst of the discussion. And I'm happy to introduce the 5 speakers of today. And can you put on the slide, please? So please step up to the microphone one by one. We can maybe start with Herve and then go down. I would like to ask the speakers to give a 2-minute introduction on what they do in this domain and where they will fuel the discussion. So Herve, you want to start? Yeah.
So hello everyone, very happy to be joining you this morning. So my name is Herve Hellez. I'm part of Schneider Electric. So I'm not sure I'm going to do a very lengthy introduction of Schneider Electric. You saw Gwenaëlle Avissue this morning in the plenary session. Typically, we work on energy management, in automation, decarbonization, and sustainability in industry, in buildings, but also in the data center industry. Now, I'm going to relate more to a personal story. I joined Schneider Electric 15 years ago, and we say that we want to make an impact by helping all to make the most of our resources and energy to bridge progress and sustainability. That's really one of the, we didn't say it like this 15 years ago, but that's what got me to come to Schneider Electric, because it resonated very much with me. Now, for the past 5 years, I've been working in one of our divisions that's looking very much at the data center industry, how we support from an infrastructure and from a whole value proposition the data center industry, from products to systems to full data center development, including services and sustainability services. You may not know, but Schneider is one of the leader in PPA services, actually, to the industry globally. And boy, oh boy, that's an exciting time for that industry. And that's something I did not expect. Historically, I come from automotive engineering. So when I came to the data center industry, it's something new. But we're living a really, really interesting time for that industry. I think everybody's talking about AI because of generative AI. But let's be clear that AI is nothing new. It's something that's been around, that we've been using in industry for 10, 15 years, and it's really coming to the public consciousness with generative AI, which is driving an acceleration in the power requirements around the data centers. I like what Frank was saying earlier on. We'll come back on it. I'm not going to expand on that now. We have time to discuss, but I think the industry has been doing pretty well in managing its power requirement over time, but now things are shifting. The good news from my side, what I like about Schneider, is that on one side we are using digital technology, we're using AI technology to help decarbonize the rest of the industries. So we see the impact of a technology. We're all talking about the impact of a technology in terms of its power usage, but there's an impact of a technology of what it helps us do into other segments of the industry, how we decarbonize buildings, industries, manufacturing. So it's a privileged position that we have at Schneider to see that part. And we see that very fast growth of a data center industry and its power requirements. So looking forward to exchange with the whole room on these topics.
So thank you, Herve. Mihir, you want to go next? Mihir is head of AI of Engie and sponsor of this session. So Mihir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I don't know if I'm an expert, but I certainly do feel like a fish in here. And I love learning and teaching, so I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Frank. So Engie, I joined Engie 5 years ago, and since then, Engie's purpose has moved to being an accelerator in the energy transition. And it's certainly something that we look at from the perspective of AI. So at Engie Research and Innovation, I lead a program called Breakthrough AI, where we look at how AI can accelerate its impact on each of the different businesses and activities of the group. So the activities of the group range from energy production through renewables, both electricity and green molecules as well, transportation and distribution, storage, flexibility, energy management to various types of customers. So through the whole value chain of power plants to energy consumption, we look at how AI can have levers both to optimize the production of electricity and gas, optimize predictive maintenance, optimize the consumption to help reduce carbon emissions from our customers' perspective. And we look at it both in terms of the return on investment from a carbon perspective. How much do our solutions consume carbon to be built and to run? and how much do they help save both our activities and our customers' activities in terms of carbon emissions. So one way to look at it, I think, with the advent of generative AI, which is an addition to the classical machine learning and classical AI that's been around for decades, is the fact that, to take an automotive example from Herve's background maybe, is generative AI the Hummer or the SUV of the digital world? Is that the case, or do we have really levers in which AI can combine classical machine learning with the new types of generative AI to bring value to the carbon emissions and energy transition objectives we have? Thanks.
Thank you, Mihir. Simone, you want to go?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Simone. Very happy to be here. It's very funny, actually, that it's a learning kind of setup, because there are professors that I had 10 years ago at KU Leuven at UPC here in the room. So it's very funny. Anyway, I'm Simone. I'm the Chief Product Officer and co-founder at Flexidao. Flexidao is a software company. We offer a clean energy intelligence platform to very large energy buyers. What this means in practice is that big companies with global operations have renewable energy targets that they need to achieve by 2025, 2030. So they buy massive amounts of renewable energy, PPAs, green tariffs, guarantees of origin, etc. Our platform helps them manage everything post-signature. So collection of data, monitoring of financial performance, return on investment. They are they are being invoiced the correct amount. They receive the correct amount of guarantees of origin. What is the CO2 footprint? Reporting to European Union, reporting to the Security Exchange Council in the US, etc., etc., etc. We work with the likes of Kimberly-Clark, PepsiCo, Procter & Gamble, but for today, which is much more relevant, also with Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Iron Mountain, and EdgeConneX. So hyperscalers, co-location centers, very different challenges, and we bring that perspective today. Happy to participate in the discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Simone. Julia, can you?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Julia, and I'm a partner at Set Ventures. Set Ventures is, we've been around for 17 years, and we have 400 million euros of assets under management, and we invest that in digital energy solutions to accelerate a carbon-free energy system. So we're, for example, an investor in Flexidao, but also in many other very interesting companies. And we've actually been investing in AI and machine learning applications for over 10 years now. Because of its capability to do mass pattern recognition of very, very large data sets. And we see this as one of the key enablers of the energy transition, actually, because it's absolutely necessary that we have this capability because of all the numerous decentralized new energy sources that all need to be integrated into this in this energy grid. Variable energy, unpredictable sometimes without the use of AI. So you need this for, first of all, integrating all of that into the grid and balancing the grid, but also planning and modeling the expansion of the grid, predictive maintenance of the grid. So all of that is enabled by AI. So some of our older and also exited companies include EnergyWorks, Zonnen, LimeJump, GreenCom, S4In. All these companies have played a key role in applying AI and machine learning to accelerate the energy system transition.
Thank you, Julia. And last, I want to introduce Jef. He's a professor at Stanford and director of MineralX. So, Jef.
Yeah, glad to be here. I'd like to start a little bit with a pop quiz. I'm a professor, after all. And there's a pop quiz about investment. Last week, there was a climate tech company that closed a Series B funding of $500 million. And so the question to you is, what is this climate company? And what was their main technology? To answer that question, or to see why this was so attractive, I'd like to step a little back and talk about what is really important for the energy transition. And maybe even think about what can really derail the energy transition, right? Is it batteries? We know how to make batteries. We know how to make hydrogen. We know all those things. What we don't know today is the $3 trillion of copper that we need to have to put in those batteries and all these other materials that we have not even discovered in the earth. And so the company that I'm talking about is Colette Metals. It's a company that uses, for the first time ever in human history, made a discovery of a major copper deposit in Zambia that was announced just a couple of months ago, and doing that using artificial intelligence. Now, we have to talk a little bit about what is artificial intelligence, right? So we talked about earlier about generative AI and machine learning. This is a very different kind of artificial intelligence called intelligent agents. And so these intelligent agents that are built together between MineralX and Cobalt Metals is an agent, is a human-in-the-loop AI. It's an AI that collaborates with humans, particularly, of course, expert humans, in making plans about the future much more efficiently than can be done just by humans alone. And so this is one of the components where Cobalt Metals had used planning for exploration. But we're using this, or we're thinking about this can be extended far beyond exploration of minerals, can be used to plan any system under uncertainty. And there's no much more difficult plan under uncertainty, that is the energy transition. So I think when we have a discussion about AI, we also have to discuss a little about what AI are we talking about and how is it useful to us as humans in the energy transition.
Okay, thank you, Jef. So since this is a fishbowl, we have, of course, many other people in the room that can contribute to the debate. I have invited a number of people from our academic shareholders that are experts in certain domains, or startup companies. They will all join the discussion. And like we say, in a fishbowl, the audience is the speaker, so feel free to intervene. We have microphones, you can step up. We have walking microphones, and I hope we'll have a good session. So we'll kick it off with the first question for the audience, which you should answer with the blue or the red. So don't mix them up. I mean, it's important that we have the right color. And the question to you is, are you concerned about the negative impact of AI on our sustainability targets? So, red, some blue, blue, blue. I see a lot of blue, but then again, I'm colorblind, so that maybe that doesn't help, of course. I specifically ask, I don't want red and green. Give me black or white, but it's a mixed bag, that's for sure. But I want to go back to our named speakers and ask a bit on how they see the solutions to that, whether we believe it's a threat or not. I mean, everybody is working on solutions, and I would like to ask Mihir, if from Engie's point of view, what do you really see as solutions, technical or other ones? Engie, what are you doing? And from the audience, raise your hand if you want to intervene, because that's the game. Mihir.
So we think a lot about AI and its impact on climate change, both the challenges and the positive impact that it can have. And one of the ways that we read through it is through a grid where we look at the life cycle of energy projects, from construction and design to land use, to engaging with stakeholders, to then running the power plants and understanding production and consumption patterns, and then understanding transversal activities around health and safety of running those operations and maintaining those operations, and CSR and ESG impact, etc. So we look at it from that perspective and thinking about how different AI models and algorithms can help in each of those areas. And like we mentioned earlier, there are different types of AIs. There is classical machine learning that uses numerical data that is prevalent in our space because we have assets that have data that comes out of those equipment in forms of time series. We also have a lot of knowledge that comes out of documentation, and for those kinds of use cases, we have generative AI types of models that can leverage written documentation. Also, we can potentially use AI for image recognition, both in terms of identifying and inspecting defects, but also for designing some of these power plants. And their generative AI using diffusion models can also help design the optimum power plant setup, for example. So there are various types of algorithms, and we look at it from both these angles in a matrix form in some sense, and trying to understand for each of these use cases, what's the impact positive it can have, what's the negative and challenges that the models can bring to the table, what's the return on carbon investment that we have for each of these models. And from a general perspective, we try to, of course, keep a positive impact on every activity that we have around AI. But we also look at the convergence of these new technologies. So, for example, if you look at OpenAI's new roadmap in terms of large-scale development in the next few years or decades, depending on how you see the pace of AI development, they started with what we traditionally call chatbots at the moment, which was launched with ChatGPT, and then moved on to reasoning systems. And they're now working on agents, intelligent agents that can take action based on the recommendations of an AI model. And then we're looking at the impact it can have on society and organizations as a whole. So on the future of work, for example, we see that generative AI is impacting individual productivity and performance in organizations, but we don't see large-scale organizational and process change and AI transformation like we've seen IT transformation or data and digital transformation in the past. And I think that's going to be one of the next steps, is how can we embed AI into our daily activities, both very specific to the kinds of energy transition activities that we have in this sector, but also more functional activities around things like HR, procurement, or finance and legal. And in those, both those aspects, there'll be models that converge, but it's not a silver bullet. So we have to use the most optimum model, the one that consumes the least energy for the goal that we're trying to achieve, both in terms of training those models, but also using them on a day-to-day basis. And that's something that can help optimize the kind of infrastructure needed for running those models.
Thank you, Mihir. Anybody wants to react on that or has something to add?
I'm Colette Lewiner. I am part of the InnoEnergy Supervisory Board, but I have my career in energy and IT as well. I think GenAI has, of course, two facets. It's clear. One positive, helping on the energy transition. And then this one, I think, one thing which is very difficult to modelize is the consumption. It's more easy to have a model on production, even if it's more difficult today because you have decentralized production, intermittent renewables, etc. It's more difficult, but you can see how to do it. On the consumption, it's very difficult because consumption of people is related to their perception of the future, prices, also budget restrictions, etc. And my wish would be that GenAI can help better modelizing the consumption, because it's very important on a grid. You know that to balance the grid, you need to balance at each moment the grid, and then to have with variable production, you need to know very well the consumption. And if not, you're going to waste a lot of your energy putting it on the grid at a moment where people don't need it, or and you have negative prices, or the reverse, not having enough energy in the moments where people need it. So this is my wish, and I wish that companies or startups work on this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Colette. And I think there is good hope there, because I know from our UPC colleagues working on the Moonshot project that Google has a project called Tapestry, where they want to have the Google Maps for electrons. And that's exactly what they're looking at. So that's a good one. Somebody else wants to take the floor? No, then I would like to ask Herve to tell us a bit about Schneider. I mean, when you're in a booming business, you're also famous for energy efficiency. Can you put one and two together?
Yeah, sure. Maybe let's come back to the topic of the industry, because we are talking about data center in a bit in isolation here, like it's something that's now coming on the map. But really, you know, one thing that's been striking for me when I joined that industry is that if you look at what the industry's been doing over the past 10, 15 years, and I like what you said when you opened, Frank, is that efficiency has been a key driver. It's one of the few industry we have the chance at Schneider to see a lot of different segments of the industry, and it's one of the industry that I would say is more concerned and more advanced on looking at sustainability and efficiency overall. I mean, you can take a few examples, but back to the point that you were making earlier on, if you take a 1 kilowatt server from back in 2000s, you're going to do exactly the same level of compute today with the 10-watt Raspberry Pi. That's a factor 100 in the efficiency of the devices. And we see that today, even if you look at Google GPUs over 2 generations, actually, they increased by a factor of 30 the efficiency of these, where the output of these GPUs, for only doubling the power consumption. So that's the first element. And then from an infrastructure perspective, we've seen a lot of the players, may they be data center operators or internet giants, looking at what we can do from an electrical management and a building management perspective to reduce what we call PUE, power usage effectiveness, so how much power we use into these facilities and how much is going to the IT, right? Just to give you a sense of what's been going on is if you look at 2007, 2010 power usage effectiveness on average was about a factor of 2. So for 2 watts going into the data center, only 1 was going to the IT. Now, if you look at the large data centers, and because of effects of scale as well and changes in the technology today, most of the large data centers are going to be around 1.1 or even lower. So we only lose about 10% of our energy. So really the industry, from my perspective, we've seen a lot of focus on that. We've seen a lot of focus on the use of renewables. When I look at the topic, what we see today is basically it's our hunger for compute that's changing the paradigm. Let's not forget that we already had a hunger for storage and servers, and cloud is already a major driver for more data centers out there, right? I mean, if you would remove AI for a minute, the data center industry would still grow double-digit just on the use of cloud. You can look at all cloud vacancy rates in Europe. They are at an historical low, below 10%, right? So there is already a demand at that stage. AI and basically new technologies around AI have been pushing the boundaries and just giving that inflection point in terms of the level of compute we're asking for. The key question is, what do we use that compute for? Just one point I wanted to add to that is, if you look at that inflection point and that additional requirement that's coming for, efficiency is not enough anymore. We cannot sustain the growth of a data center industry just by efficiency, right? So look back 10, 15 years, we actually saw a 6-fold increase of internet traffic, 4-fold increase of workload in data centers, and the energy consumption of data centers only increased by 20 to 50%. But as you look forward, that equation is not going to be enough anymore. So we need to look at the full spectrum of solutions in front of us, and there are some solutions in front of us, right? I mean, I've been talking about efficiency. We could look at modernization of the existing park of data centers, by the way. There is still a lot of capacity that can be freed up from existing data centers just by modernizing them. A lot of you in the room are coming up with self-generation options. How do we bring self-generation to the data center industry? Believe me, the customer we talk to are really excited about self-generation opportunities. They're even talking to TSOs about being able to have their own transmission lines, right, to accelerate the deployment of self-generation for their data centers. And overall, I'd like to react on the point that was just made earlier on. We believe at Schneider there is a lot of value in a much better collaboration between the data center industry and the utilities and the energy industry. Again, talking about optimizing the grid usage, increasing power factor of renewables is something that we can look into, and the data center industry is ready to sit down and have this type of discussions. So again, I think there's a lot we can look at in front of us, but let's be clear, it's not a question of one solution or another and which one is the right solutions, right? It's really putting all the solutions and in the equation and having a discussion together and finding these solutions.
So there is still a lot of room for innovation in there, no? And startups. So anybody wants to add to that?
Good morning, bon dia. My name's Andrew Fray. I'm a senior international partner at Cushman & Wakefield. I've been in the data center industry for about 25 years. Over the last 4 years, we've transacted about 3.2 gigawatts of powered land across EMEA, from Stavanger down to Johannesburg. The scale of growth and demand for growth is about 10 times in terms of density and scale that it was 3 years ago. It is staggering. We're being asked day in, day out now for 300 MVA sites right across the region. That's also replicated in the States, which is probably going twice as fast, and APAC, which is probably going about half as fast. So this is a game-changing phenomenon, similar to my experience when we moved from telco to internet. And I always use now the analogy of what happened with Cisco in terms of managing data to now what NVIDIA is doing with the chip that controls our future. I think it's very exciting, it's very demanding, and I think it's the most exciting thing to flesh out and pull in the networks to say what they're doing, where they've got power, how they're going to integrate all these different power sources in order to direct them at this demand. There are challenges about the business cases and where the money is going to flow. That's to be built. The management and then the purpose of AI is what intrigues me more now. Everyone talks about data centers, but not all data centers are made equal. What matters is what is the purpose of those data centers, what function they're serving, and is that for good, or is that going to be for something that's not so good, or something that's actually meaningless and just consuming power for no particular reason? I think if we move from taking pictures of our pets and posting pictures of our food to then putting that in 3 dimensions and predicting the activity of our cats, it's not the best use of this technology. So I would urge the general, the world really, to check that this application and this Klondike, it's a Klondike rush for power, is then in this new collaboration used for good.
So thank you very much for this very nice insight. People, stop posting pictures, please. Don't post pictures. We'll do that maybe afterwards and select the good ones. But looking at the massive build-outs that you're referring to, I mean, does anybody have an idea how much the 5 hyperscalers are spending this year on data centers? I'm talking Microsoft, Meta, Amazon. Pick a number. 10 billion? Who goes for 10 billion? More. 50 billion? 100. This year, it's 100 billion. And if you add all the other players that are in the same space, it's 1.5 trillion. So you can imagine that this is a huge industry. And I learned that last year, 50% of infrastructure investments went to the digital infrastructure. So that's the fastest growing one. But this brings me, of course, to investments. And Julia, you're on the investment side. I would like to hear your perspective on what's going on in this world and where are the opportunities for our startups and the new things we can still do.
Yes, so indeed, as you say, cloud computing and AI are a huge consumer of electricity. So currently it's about 1.5% of global electricity consumption. And in 2 years that's predicted to be more than double, so 3% of global electricity consumption. That's massive. And currently that's being powered about 40% by renewable energy. But the good news is that the expectation is that that number will dramatically go up. So all the big tech companies that are operating data centers like Google and Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, they've all publicly communicated their targets for very, very large numbers of renewable PPAs that will power their data centers. So that's very good news. So more than 50 billion in the US alone will be invested by 2030 to power data centers. So we believe that that in itself is going to be a huge accelerator, that volume of new renewable energy, to bring down the cost per megawatt hour of renewable energy. So that in itself is, in the short term, bad news, but in the longer term, very good news for the energy transition. And then where are the investment opportunities in AI? Well, we believe that in the short term, it's in the infrastructure of AI, but that's not for venture funds like us. But actually in the longer term, the real value will be on the applications on top of AI. So that an analogy to the rise of the internet, that's why now Facebook is many, many times more valuable than Cisco, who was providing the infrastructure. And then on the application side of AI in the energy sector, actually we believe, again, as I just said, that this is a huge opportunity for accelerating the energy transition. So where energy or AI is consuming a lot of energy in data centers, it's actually massively reducing the energy consumption in other sectors. So for example, companies like Filisto in our portfolio, but also Siemens on a much larger scale, are applying AI models to optimize HVAC in buildings. So to actually forecast room utilization and temperatures and all sorts of other utilities in buildings and optimize that. And so on the building side, then there's the industrial side. So companies like SensorFact in our portfolio are helping industries reduce their energy consumption by 30% using AI, energy forecasting again, but also predictive maintenance. Those sort of applications are helping to reduce waste and energy waste. Then in other sectors, obviously AI is helping the mass integration and utilization of renewables. Companies like Green Eagle Solutions, Hydrogrid in our portfolio are helping optimize in an automated way renewable power plants by processing real-time data at a mass scale and automatically acting on that. Then there are companies like Esferin and Frequenz who are helping C&I customers to balance, to trade their energy flexibility and thereby help balance the grid. And companies like Thibaut Energy in the Netherlands who are using AI to plan and then also optimize microgrids that will help also increase the resilience or energy resilience. And I can go on and on with examples in our portfolio, but also on a mass scale, like Tesla using AI for optimizing batteries. There are many, many applications that in total are reducing our total energy consumption and increasing the uptake of renewables. And that has a much bigger and also more long-term impact than the kind of short-term energy consumption requirements of AI.
Thank you, Julia. So it looks like there is a big investment opportunity there for InnoEnergy. And maybe we should consider having a thematic area there. But I think one of our startups wants to add something here.
Yes, thank you, Frank. I'm from Enline Digital Services, and I'm managing shareholder, and thanks to what you said. And I just wanted to say a little bit what we as startups, and now we are even a scale-up, can contribute or try to contribute to all this discussion. We are talking about data centers. We are talking about data centers increasing the demand for energy extremely. And what is our concern? Our concern are the grids. How the grids can take all this load. And it's not only data centers. We are having the increasing number of renewables. Unbelievable. I'm coming from Germany. It's unbelievable how the wind and solar is growing. Even it's too much. The grid cannot take if we have a lot of sunshine. So that means what can we do here? And our concept is a pure software concept. So we are trying to integrate all stakeholders in the grid. We have the renewables, we have the consumers, data center industry. We have storage, which is also not enough, which needs to be increased. And we have a principle of a digital twin. So that means we are digitization all assets that are in the grid. And by our solutions, we can increase the flexibility. It starts with the transmission line, distribution lines in the industry sector. We're having a power flexibility platform to bring together the stakeholders and then to let's say, master the flexibility that is needed in the grids. So this is what we are trying to develop. We have already very many contracts with customers that are also here in the room with the names. So this is our big, let's say, conclusion and our mission to really support as a startup this flexibility and to make the grids more safe and reliable by this technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, and I think I can add there that we can build a data center in 12 months, but we cannot increase the grid capacity in 12 months. So we need other things, and Enline has very nice solutions to that. So the space for the startups is really a nice playing ground. And I would like to ask Simone from Flexidao, because you have shareholders and customers in all those hyperscaler areas. How do you see that evolving? Because one of the things I once heard from, I think it was Jim Simonelli from Schneider, who said, hey guys, we will not PPA our way out of this. There is something more needed. So what is your take on this? Where should we go with the hyperscalers and the next couple of years?
It's a great question. Also, I signed a lot of NDAs, so I can't say much about our clients' targets.
But it's a fishbowl. What happens in the fishbowl stays in the fishbowl.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think it's related to this question. There's something very important to discuss, which is what does it mean to use or consume renewable energy? We can't track electrons, right? That's why we rely on guarantees of origins and a book and claim system. And as we electrify across industries, as we bring additional load, like with AI, what does it mean to be a green AI, a renewable powered AI? This is extremely top of mind for the industry right now. There's I don't know if you've read it, there's a Financial Times article that discusses the changes that are going on in the renewable energy sector. It's about big tech and how they are influencing regulation around what it means to buy renewable energy. This is extremely top of mind for us. That's one of the key things that we do. Google, for example, is a major proponent of this new strategy called 24/7, which means matching renewable energy production to load on an hourly basis, on a local basis. Amazon takes a completely different approach, and they say CO2 is global, so it's more kind of an offset-based system. And this is key because, again, as we electrify, all companies have 2030 targets, what does it really mean to use renewable energy, and how Google can say, I sell and I provide a renewable powered AI? This has an implication on hydrogen, RFNBO, green hydrogen, the three pillars that the European Union discussed. The United States are having the same discussions. Battery legislation, battery manufacturing, now they removed PPAs, for example, or procurement of renewable energy to claim green batteries. So it's a pivotal moment. The standard that regulates this at a global level, it's called Scope 2 from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. Scope 2 is being reviewed right now. The rules are being written again. So in 2 years from now, at the beginning of 2027, there will be a new definition of Scope 2, which will be the new definition of how everyone in the world will be able to claim renewable energy. So this has a massive impact on how all the hyperscalers will buy renewable energy, but also how suppliers will define their tariffs, the guarantees of origin systems in Europe. This has also implications with the CBAM, for example, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, so like border protection when it comes to moving production to China, etc. So to me, this is a very, very interesting discussion, much more than Google is increasing its consumption 10x. Yeah, we know. We are electrifying by definition. That's the mantra of the energy transition, electrify, electrify, electrify. But then it needs to be followed by renewable energy. And therefore, the question, if I consume in Spain, what renewable energy am I allowed to procure? Can I sign a contract with a Norwegian power plant? Does it mean I'm at zero emissions or not? That, to me, is a critical question, and AI and more generally the growth of loads of like hyperscalers, but not only, is driving a lot this discussion. They're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into this lobbying and regulatory discussion, and I think it will be one of the top key topics for the next 2 years for the whole energy sector.
Okay, thank you, Simone. Any comments on this one? Yes, Colette, please.
Very quick comment. We need to talk of low carbon energy and include nuclear. And you see You saw the agreement between Microsoft and Constellation in the US, where they want to reopen 3 Mile Island. I'm not sure they're going to do it. Not the reactors that had an accident, the other one. Anyhow, a lot of those Microsofts of the world want to have nuclear power and even thinking of having their own SMR near their data center, which I think is a bit utopia. But I think we need to include nuclear in the whole thinking.
We will certainly do, Colette, and right after the last speaker, we will have a little discussion on that. Yeah, you want to go?
Yeah, that's indeed part of the discussion, right? Because a general movement is now we certify and measure renewable energy, and there's a lot of proponents that we move to certify and measure carbon-free energy. Biomass, would that be included? For example, yes or not? CCS, would that be included? Yes or not? So we're really discussing about like the labeling and the core topics of what you're allowed to claim. And I think there's, of course, you want baseload. You want predictable carbon-free baseload. So nuclear is the best friend, especially of an industry that is baseload by definition. So I think this is a key point. And in the last 2 weeks, Amazon, Meta, Google, and Microsoft, they all came out with nuclear deals, all of them. And it's just a matter of time that this also leaves the US as market.
Yeah. So we already started the discussion on nuclear, but before we go there, because I think we will be here all day, I want to give the floor to Jef, because we have been talking about the impact of AI on the energy system, on the energy transition. And in some of the interventions of the speakers, we also talked about, well, AI is really doing quite a lot to advance the energy transition. And my question to Jef is really, well, we can do a lot of little things, and we need all the little things, but what will move the needle? Where will AI move the needle in the energy transition? Do you have some ideas on that, or can you help us?
Yeah, maybe I'll just kind of finish the discussion on GenAI and quote Yann LeCun, who is the AI lead at Meta, and he said, GenAI is about as smart as a cat. And those are the same cats you're taking pictures of. And so why does he say that? And I completely agree with that. And actually, I want to bet with you a bottle of Spanish wine, that in 5 years, nobody talks about GenAI anymore. And the reason is that it actually is not very business friendly. It can't make any business model out of it. And so there's a lot of questions in the industry why this is actually needed. So I have to think more about what is really needed. And so the AI that I think we need is, in general terms, is AI software, essentially. Software that meets hardware. That's where it's going to matter. And if you think now about where is software needing to meet hardware, and where is the hardware? How do we optimize hardware? Because hardware is expensive, right? If you think just about trucks or building things, it's just extremely expensive to do that, and it's very slow. So one of the areas, of course, that I work in and where we see an incredible potential is in the upstream raw material supply chain. For every 100 battery experts or academics, there's only one geologist that actually looks at the raw materials. And this is a huge problem. And that's also where software meets the hardware. For example, the building of processing facilities, or the building of mines, or even just making discoveries. I'm involved in exploration in the northern part of Canada, where you have to fly in 747s with drill bits and things like that in order just to do exploration in that area, right? If you do that very inefficiently, then you're spending a lot of money you don't need to spend. So I think we have to think more about this issue of software meets hardware and how we can get more efficient. And so that's where the kind of AI I really advocate looking into, and I believe this is the AI that is going to lead in the future, is more that of AI that actually recommends actions, not the AI that does predictions, right? GenAI, machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning, these are all techniques that basically make good predictions. But prediction doesn't do anything, right? You have to actually have an action or recommend an action. And so this kind of intelligent agents, which if you look at for every 100 applications of machine learning, there's only one application of this intelligent agent. Also, we call that partially observable Markov decision processes, we've probably never heard of, but these are kind of techniques that are coming. So improving efficiencies in an industry like the mining and processing industry that essentially does still the same thing 50 years ago is still doing the same things today. If you go to a mine or a processing plant, they still do the same things 50 years ago. There is no innovation, right? So that is, I think, where the biggest impact will be for artificial intelligence and taking this industry and building it up into a modern industry that fully embraces digitization and the use of computing to optimize operations.
Well, thank you very much, Jef. And I think I will remember your quote, predictions do nothing. You need to translate them into actions. And that is very much aligned with what InnoEnergy wants to do. We want to move to action and not think too much and predict too much. I see we have a remark there or an addition.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question to rebound on what you said. What brings us from AI that does classification and prediction to an AI that take actions? What is the gap and how we can fill this gap, technically speaking? Thank you.
Yeah, so when you have an AI that does actions, you actually have to specify rewards in the future. What is it you want to achieve? Then you have to specify the various actions you want to take. For example, I want to drill more wells, or I want to build a processing facility with such and such capabilities, right? So once you have specified those, and then the most important component of this AI is the uncertainty. Because we all live in this transition, and there's so much uncertainty, right? You mentioned uncertainty on consumption, uncertainty on price, uncertainty on availability. So there's basically the four components, which is actions, rewards, uncertainty, and then observations. And then there's basically mathematical formulations that exist that can couple all these things together and come up with an idea. So the machine learning form AI comes into predictions, and particularly in the quantifications of uncertainty. It's like, how uncertainty is the future going to be if I would take certain actions? But so these actions is where the infrastructure is used, right? And this is where it's expensive. For example, in Zambia, there's making discovery, you have to drill 45 kilometers of boreholes, which cost $30 million to do. Right? This is real world stuff, right? And so we have to find 300 of those deposits just to meet the copper demand by 2040. So this is really, I think, the key issues to look for.
Okay, very educational. So we are learning a lot here. Now, we still have 15 minutes left, and I would like to come back to the topic of nuclear, because if you have been following the news in the last month, every week another hyperscaler has announced a nuclear deal. The last one was yesterday. Amazon investing $500 million in Engie, an SMR producer and nuclear fuel producer in the US. So that's certainly part of the solution. And I know this is quite an interesting topic. So I want to do a little voting before we enter into the debate. Who believes that we can make this transition without nuclear? So blue is yes. Blue, blue, red, red. Red means nuclear has to be there. Red, 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 blue. Yeah, I would say a mixed bag. So that's ideal for discussion. And I know you know that InnoEnergy has a master's program, EMINE. It's a European Master in Nuclear Engineering. We have been receiving students from all over the world, like around 20-ish, I think, per year. Well, if what's happening today is an indication of the future, this will be our biggest program. And I have here with me Lluis Batet, who is one of our supervisory board members, and also the former program director on EMINE. And I would really be very interested to hear your view on that.
Okay, thanks for the introduction, Frank. Of course, I believe that there is no solution for energy transition without nuclear. Okay, there's many arguments for that, but I think this is not the topic of the Fishbowl today. It's simply seeing how can we manage the evolution of artificial intelligence in the future. Frank mentioned a number which is even higher than what I believe. This 4% of the total electricity. I don't know if it's global or...
It's a global number. Yeah.
Global number. This is in all the data centers without taking into account that in the future artificial intelligence probably will grow more and will demand more. So we are facing a future where the demand of electricity by these data centers can escalate in a non-linear way, and we don't know what will be the shape. And on the other side, so more demand. On the other side, we are discussing here. I will not argue with that because I believe that artificial intelligence will help us to improve all the mechanisms by which we produce and we consume energy. And if we put it in a balance, probably is in favor that artificial intelligence will save more energy than we consume extra, taking into account that the world is consuming more or less 20,000 terawatt hours of electricity per year, and this will escalate as well as we shift from all the industry that is difficult to decarbonize. We are going to electricity or to hydrogen. So having the big scale of even if renewable, even if artificial intelligence only play a small role, is a small role in a big number, so probably the numbers are in favor that artificial intelligence will help us to reduce the consumption. On the other side, we need not to forget the big things that artificial intelligence and data science and all the computational models are doing for us, preventing catastrophes, helping to mitigate them, helping us to develop new medicines, or whatever. So I think it's a good point here for artificial intelligence, not only looking at the role in energy. Okay, taking pictures of cats maybe is not the good thing, yeah, but all the other things are good. Regarding, probably I'm not here to talk of this, but of nuclear, I will only say that nuclear is safe. See that we are starting in the next few years, we will start Harrisburg, which is a unit, the twin of which had a big accident in the 70s, and the other plant continued operating until 5 years ago. So not so serious the accident must be, so that the plant, which is half a mile besides it, it's still operating until now. And we are thinking of a new generation of reactors, which will be smaller, will be probably cheaper, and of course far more safe than are now. And I got the word of Julie at the beginning that says we will investing, our companies are investing in renewables. I think nuclear is not renewable, but almost. Okay? We can make a very intelligent use of the nuclear resource in the future in a way that we can even multiply by almost 2 orders of magnitude the energy we extract from it. In new generation reactors. Of course, the future, will be many years in the future. Nobody has seen the future, as they say. It's very difficult to make predictions, especially when the predictions are about the future. So I will not say what will be faced, but I can assure you that nuclear will be there to supply energy for artificial intelligence.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Lluis. So anybody from the red voters who has a reflection on this or a counter-argument? The blue, sorry, I'm colorblind, I told you. No. Yeah, please.
Hi, Yaran from InnoEnergy. I would like to ask you a question. You said that nuclear is safe, but there's a lot of opposite reactions for that as well. Based on what you're saying safe, is it only because of the number of incidents, or did we de-risk it already with some innovations?
I think one thing, all accidents like Fukushima have been taken into account in the new features of the reactors and in the features of the existing reactors. If you take France, we have 56 reactors. Now there is a big program EDF is running to increase safety, to take into account the accident of Fukushima. For example, in Fukushima, well, many mistakes, but one was that they could not cool when it happened, then the reactor stopped, but the nuclear reaction continues for a certain time. So it's heating. And they had put their pumps, water pumps, too low. Other reactors nearby put the pumps high, and when the wave arrived, it was just below. But in Fukushima, the wave arrived, and it was all under the water. The grid was not functioning, so they could not cool it. Okay, so all now today, the new one, but the existing one are retrofitted to take into account this. And for example, they have mass of water up. So if it happens, the water will fall. You don't need a pump, you need nothing, it falls. So yes, it is retrofitted for the existing one, and it is taken into account for the new ones. I think this is an excellent question, and the nuclear industry has to take this into account. They cannot ignore not only the accidents, but even the incidents. Okay, but this is a duty of the nuclear industry, I think so. Thank you.
Jef, you want to add to that?
Yes, I'm in the blue team, and I'd like to quote my colleague Mark Jacobson. Mark Jacobson wrote a book called No Miracle Technology Needed, which is for the energy transition, we don't need to invent anything new. And his plan is similar to the plan of Tesla and the energy transition plan. In this plan, there's no nuclear, and there's very little hydrogen. And so I'll quote Mark saying that every dollar spent on nuclear is $1 less spent on clean, renewable energy, and $1 more spent on making the world a comparatively dirtier and more dangerous place, because nuclear power and nuclear weapons go together. So that's his statement, and I very much agree with that.
Okay, that's food for thought. And by the way, Tesla's strategic plan, you can download it from their website. It's really worth reading. I mean, it's really worth reading. I think they just published a new one this year or at the end of last year. Go there because it's very inspirational. Okay, one last comment on nuclear, or yeah, Lluis, of course, you need to.
Yeah, of course, I can only disagree with that, because the tremendous amount of material things that you need to construct renewables make them not maybe so dirty, but almost so dirty as nuclear. If you take into account, it is a fear, okay? And of course, we cannot play with fears. It's very irrational. So whatever argument I give to people who fears nuclear will be useless completely, okay? Because we are playing with the fears of the people. There's a problem. Fortunately, mindset of globally is changing on that respect. But I see that talking of nuclear in this aspect of TBB and maybe in InnoEnergy as well is like seeing the elephant in the room and nobody wants to see it, yeah? And, please take into account the amount of mining that we need. Of course, copper is also needed in nuclear. I will not deny that, okay? But of all the other types of minerals that we need to make the energy transition, and we see that with renewables alone, we don't go there. So I am fully convinced that nuclear will be here in next century, but at least we should agree, because we need to be practical and we need to arrive to next century. So I want my daughters and granddaughters to be there. If we want to go there, we need to go the path. And in this path, we need nuclear. Without it, we will not do it. The world, we don't have time. We don't have time.
Okay, good. But since we're approaching lunchtime, we have an option. Either we continue debating about nuclear or we go to lunch in a couple of minutes. But before we go there, I wanted to add some other dimension to the very good discussion we had today. And this is, of course, that, well, the energy transition is global. And as you have heard in the keynote speak, InnoEnergy is planning to expand in the US. Now, there are a lot of jokes about the US versus Europe. We are very good in regulation. We are not so good in innovation. I will leave those jokes for what they are. Sometimes they are funny, sometimes not so funny. But let's go to the core point of it. And this is the last voting you can do. And we will not use the blue or the red because I get confused. The ones that say yes will raise their arm. And the question is about a quote of David Kahn. And David Kahn is the senior partner of Sequoia Capital. And he has a very capitalistic view on, of course, how this should move. He talked about the IRA, the Green Deal in Europe, and his statement is, well, AI will drive the energy transition more than any regulation. So the ones that believe, yes, this is true, raise your hand. The ones that say, this is not true, just, yes, this is true, yes, this is true. So AI will drive more the energy transition than any regulation. Yeah? Okay. So I assume that all the rest says no? Or you abstain? Who said no? Oh, okay. So it seems we have a yes. No, so, okay, but I think this is things we're thinking about, because with what we really see today in the energy transition, whether it's in data centers or other areas, in the end, it's the business driving it. And also in data centers, it will be the cost driving it. Because in the end of the day, it's about economics. If you scale exponentially your technology, you cannot scale exponentially your cost. You have to be more efficient. And that goes for everything. So my conclusion is a bit, well, to make this energy transition, we are changing everything. We need everything. We need everybody. And that will bring us there. We cannot exclude one or the other solution. Maybe a little bit more of this, a little bit less of the other, but it has to be all there. So that kind of brings me to the end of this session. I want to start by thanking our invited speakers. These were really very nice insights. I also want to thank the other speakers and the audience, because this new format worked much better than I expected. I mean, we had a nice interaction, very interesting new insights from the audience. Thank you for that. If you like this format, let us know in the feedback, because then for sure next year we'll have another Frank's Fishbowl and maybe on another topic. So thank you all, and a big applause for all the